Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with episode 61 of our Reddit series. This one's going to be a little bit more entitled parents, and I know you're going to love this one. I just want to give a quick thank you to everyone who has subscribed and joined the channel recently. We're getting close to that 250,000 mark, and I cannot thank you all enough. So if you are new around here, don't forget to smash the subscribe button, then sit back, relax, and get annoyed at some entitled parents. So this is part 2 from the story in our last Entitled Parents episode, where the mum walked into the computer store claiming that her son's computer wasn't working and he was actually banned on Steam. So here it is. Just in case you didn't see that one, here's some context. We sold a new gaming computer to this entitled kid a few weeks ago. Custom built based on exactly what he wanted to use it for. 3 or so weeks prior to this, the entitled mum came into the shop complaining that the computer was useless and broken because it wouldn't play a specific game. It was Ghost Recon Online and it was during the early period of release and it was riddled with bugs. I managed to fix it then. That brings me to this day. 3 weeks after the initial fix, our shop had fluctuating foot traffic and some days we had no customers, some days we had too many. It was the start of the new month and everyone had their salaries paid in, so this means that our shop was very busy. We barely had enough reps to deal with the customers we had, and we only had like 3 people working on any given day. I was busy talking to a customer at the tech desk with a laptop that had a lot of issues, from mails not working to USB ports not working to even the blue screen of death. In walks the entitled mum, no entitled kid, no PC. I thought entitled mum may have just been shopping around for new games or a keyboard or something for entitled kid. The entitled mum walks up to the tech desk, to which I quickly greeted her with a, "Hi, I'll be with you in a minute." The entitled mum stood there, arms crossed, tapping her foot as if I was inconveniencing her by talking to a customer. About 5 minutes after I booked in the laptop, printed the necessary work orders, the entitled mum looked at me with this "finally" look. The entitled mum then proceeded to ask me, I've been waiting here forever. Are you going to come pick up this computer from my car or not? I just looked on with a confused face. The entitled mum then told me that she phoned the shop and my work colleague had answered. She had said she was on her way to drop off the entitled kid's computer again. She had apparently been parked, waiting outside of our shop in the disabled parking spot for 15 minutes. And for anyone that doesn't know, we have disabled parking right out the front of our door. We were so busy that my colleague afterwards had to apologize because we didn't have the time to look outside for a car to pick up a computer, and he got too busy to inform the entitled mum was on her way. Customers did this often, but I do have a few more stories about stuff like this. So, onto the computer. I went outside to fetch the machine and the entitled mum annoyed again, asking why the game doesn't work. After a few minutes and after the entitled mum trying to explain what her son told her, I said I can figure it out and have a look at it. She then knew to ask what the labor cost would be due to the previous event. Knowing how stingy she is, I told her no more than $20. She seemed fine with this if it was the game's fault this time. This time, please lady, this computer is working fine. I have the same issues with this game at home. After printing out the papers, she left. This is where the fun begins. We couldn't access the account for some reason, so I just remember having some difficulty opening Steam. At this point, I just thought he forgot his details and we did the whole Steam password reset theme, and after an hour of no results, I write an email to Steam support asking for help with the account. The next day, Steam wrote back with something along the lines of, "This Steam account has violated the terms of service and is therefore banned." It was a lengthy email detailing why the account got banned and that it could not be retrieved. I was shocked at this email. The entitled kid tried to add cracked Steam games to his Steam library. There were no actual brought games in his library, and I saw the icons on the desktop for a few games that cost well over $20. And he brought aim hacking software for Ghost Recon Online. Now knowing why the game wasn't working, I called entitled mum to ask her and entitled kid to come to the shop so I can explain to her why the game isn't working. This didn't seem like something I could say over the phone. I don't know exactly why his Steam account itself was banned. Usually a VAC ban only affects the game you cheated in, but I think they may have even tried to crack Steam games to get it for free. I don't have a lot of experience with Steam bans, so forgive me for being a bit hazy on the details. This was all around 5 years ago after all. A while later, they both entered the store. As this was a Sunday, it was a lot quieter. I had printed out the response I got from Steam, and I told her that the entitled kid had been using illegal software that he had also brought with her credit card without permission, and that his Steam account had been banned. I handed her the printed out email so she could confirm that I wasn't lying or making any excuses. The look in the entitled kid's face was priceless. At this point, he knew he'd royally effed up. He screwed the pooch. His face went white. The entitled mum turned over to him to ask what this was all about, and he just nodded and said, "Sorry." She was livid, asking how he could just use her card without her permission, how he could buy illegal software, and how he could lie to her face about all of it. At this point, the entitled kid was bawling his eyes out. This is where I started getting some respect for the entitled mum. She didn't even complain about the labor price. She in turn asked us to keep the PC in the shop for the whole week so the entitled kid could learn a lesson and clear it of all the illegal software. She was even fine with paying for the extra hours of labor. At the end of it, we did a full new Windows install as the cracks and hacks had tons of viruses included, so we spent a lot more time working on this computer. Unfortunately, in the next story, the entitled mum went back to being her entitled self again, refusing to pay $35 for 2 full days of labor for 2 tablets, her home computer, and the entitled kid's gaming rig. I know you'd all been hanging out for this one because the amount of comments I got about this was crazy, so I hope that was worth it. It was good to see the entitled mum had a bit of a change of heart at first, but pretty disappointing that she went back to her old ways. I usually like to see the conversion of an entitled parent into someone who can fit into a normal functioning society, but I guess that wasn't the case this time. I'll tell you what though, I definitely can't wait for that third story. I'm a doctor and I found this sub just recently. This happened a few years ago, but it's still stuck with me. I was working in the ER on a night shift around 3 o'clock in the morning. With me, there was one other doctor, 2 nurses, and a nice lady at the front desk managing everything. We were treating 2 people when entitled mum with her nice kid, who was 4 to 5 years old, enters the ER. The kid fell from his high bed and his knee was bleeding and his ankle hurt. They were told to wait a few minutes since it was not really busy. I'm just helping the gentleman I treated when we get the message of a really bad car accident and 3 emergency transports are on the way to us, a child included. I immediately call 2 additional doctors, a pediatrician, additional nurses, and tell them to prepare the operating rooms just in case. So, they arrive. Turns out, we could treat everyone without operation except for the child. He's been injured pretty bad and needs surgery. It was looking really bad, so the pediatrician and the operating doctors rush him into surgery. So, in the meantime, I clean my room and get to the entitled mum and the nice kid. They have complained to the front lady 3 times in around an hour, and since everyone was busy, I get out to them myself and get him into my small ER room. She was fuming and says, "Why did we have to wait that long?" And I say, "Well, I'm really sorry, but we had a really bad emergency," and she cuts me off and says, "I don't care. We were here first. Don't you hear my kid crying?" The kid was sitting there quietly playing and the entitled mum goes, "He's in pain and you let him suffer. You like to do that to kids, don't you?" The front lady comes and says, "Is there a problem?" And I just say, "Oh, I guess not. I'm going to take them to treatment." This was not good enough for the mother. And I said to her, "Can you bring your kid in the room so he doesn't have to walk?" And she says, "Don't you apologize to him?" And I say, "Listen, I'm sorry you had to wait, but I just can't see the future. There was an emergency and we had to treat them first. Please come with me now." The entitled mum then says, "But we were told we had to wait a few minutes." And the front lady goes, "Yes, but we can't plan everything. Now bring your kid into the room." And she actually does it. The kid wasn't actually in pain as long as he didn't walk around, so I could start without the kid being really scared. I treated the knee and he had to wear a supportive splint for the ankle for a few weeks, but that's it. This kid was very brave. He didn't cry at all and asked many questions. I rewarded him with candy afterwards. So, about the splint. You don't have to pay for it, but you have to give it back when the injury is healed. She didn't want that. She wanted to keep it for whatever reason, but my shift was over and I headed home. I mean, I get it somehow. I'm a mum too, and I'm also scared when my child is hurt, even if I am a professional. You're both tired and don't want to be here at night, but imagine if the child in the emergency was yours and dies because of a scratched knee. I feel like this is something that people in the ER would have to deal with constantly. I know we had that video the other day of people in the ER absolutely going at each other, but I feel like as a doctor, you would deal with this non-stop. On the other side of the coin though, nobody likes going to the ER because you can wait, 2-3 hours, but at the end of the day, you've got to look after those more injured people first. I know I'm guilty of falling that and just wanting to be seen, so a story like this really does open my eyes. When I was in kindergarten, this entitled boy came into class one day with chickenpox. This wasn't a mild case either. The spots were angry and red, and within a few hours, a couple of our classmates were itching. My teacher had immediately called his parents, but they refused to pick him up, saying that it would be good for the other children to be around him and asking her to just leave him in the classroom. Now, only about half my class had gotten their chickenpox shots at that point, and my parents were really good about getting my brothers and I our shots when we were supposed to get them. But As this was early in the school year, a lot of the parents hadn't gotten their kids vaccinated for chickenpox yet, because to enroll in kindergarten at my elementary school, you had to either vaccinate your kids before the school year starts or within 3 months after. My teacher didn't know what to do. The office told her that if the parents wanted the kids to remain in class, she was technically supposed to let him, unless other parents complained or the principal deemed him a danger to the other students. The principal was over at the high school on the other side of the city, as he was the principal of both. It's a weird Christian school thing. Anyway, he would rush over whenever he could, but because of the school handbook, the entitled brat had to remain in class. My teacher asked the school secretary to call our parents, but she only had the home number for most parents and ended up with a lot of answering machines. So, in kindergarten, everyone sat at table groups, and I was on the entitled brat's table. He was carrying on like normal, yelling about Power Rangers. I was also the only kid on our little table who had been vaccinated. I remember feeling bad because one of the girls on the table was scheduled to get her shot the next day. Talk about bad luck. A lot of the kids at my table started itching, and the girl who was supposed to get her shot the next day showed me her arm and she had very faint pink dots. I don't know if chickenpox usually moved that quickly or if entitled brat just had a super mutant strand, but I was freaked out. I knew that I'd gotten a shot that my mum promised would protect me from getting sick, but I was also 5 and still thought that Stitch from Lilo and Stitch was a real being who lived in Hawaii. I was convinced that touching entitled brat would mean I would die from chickenpox. So, my friends and I all avoided him like he had, well, the plague. Finally, the principal bursts into the room and kneels down in front of the entitled brat. He asked entitled brat to please come with him so they can call his parents together. About 20 minutes later, the entitled parents show up and crap hits the fan. The entitled mum starts screaming about how both she and her husband are licensed chiropractors and know all about the evils of vaccines and how vaccines give people autism. Now, my oldest brother has Asperger's, and if this had happened like 5 years later, I could have roasted the hell out of these anti-vaxxers for their stupidity. The entitled dad tries to calm the entitled mum down, but also quietly tells my principal that as a licensed chiropractor, they know and have seen how vaccines not only give children autism, but also make them gay. As a lesbian, I again could have roasted the crap out of them had this taken place years later. My principal firmly tells them that the entitled brat needs to go home and can only come back when he's no longer sick. The entitled parents tried to fight back, but my principal is firm and the entitled brat is dragged away from class begging his parents for a new Power Rangers toy. As the week went on, more and more of my classmates dropped like flies, until only about 7 of us remained. We were the lucky 7 who had been vaccinated prior to the start of the school year, and since most of the class was homesick, we got to play a ton of games and pick out the books we wanted to read because usually the class voted and we 7 were often among the outvoted group. After a few days, my classmates began to return, not a red spot in sight. But it was a few weeks later that the real kicker happened. The entitled parents sent an email to all the parents of the kids in my class, painting themselves as the victims and heroes for exposing the class to life's natural vaccine. My dad got mad because even though I didn't get sick, a lot of my classmates did. Thanks parents who were on top of my vaccines, y'all rock. The entitled parents asked for a thank you from the other parents, and needless to say, they got no thank yous and only a lot of passive aggressive remarks and glares in the hallway. Also, don't feel too bad for the entitled brat. He turned out to be one of the biggest entitled douchebags I've ever met. I went to school with him all the way through high school and he's one of the worst humans I've ever had the displeasure of dealing with. The entitled apple doesn't fall far from the entitled tree. Sorry, when did this turn into an episode of Vax Happened? No, but for real, it actually doesn't surprise me in any way that the entitled parents also cross over with anti-vaxxers. I should title this video Entitled Parents featuring Vax Happened, but unfortunately YouTube doesn't like it when you talk about anti-vaxxers. Despite all the complaining people do about YouTube, at least they're not on the side of the anti-vaxxers. Alright everyone, that is that for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm just going to take a second to plug a couple of my social medias, including our Discord server. I do have a Twitter and an Instagram if you want to follow me on both of those. They are both at Bumfris, and feel free to send me a message and I'll do my best to respond. I also just want to take a second to say thank you so much for all the love lately. All of the comments, the likes, the subscribers, just the fact that you guys tune in and watch my videos every day, it really does make my day. Every single one of you is the backbone of this channel and I really cannot express how much I appreciate that. Without you guys, this channel would be nothing, and I love making these videos for you guys and I love the fact that you enjoy them. So on that note, I will wrap things up for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to take a second again to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Entitled Parents. Bye.